You think by the end of the year, Putin might have to sue for peace even because he won't be able to carry on doing what he's doing?
Exactly. If pressure will increase on Putin's regime, as I mentioned, just on these two directions, in this case, Putin will be more flexible.
Donald Trump says he'll make a major statement on Russia today, hinting that he might back a major new sanctions bill that's working its way through Congress. But after years of sanctions from the West and no end in sight to the war in Ukraine, how concerned will the Kremlin really be? Mikhail Kasyanov was Prime Minister of Russia in the early days of Vladimir Putin. He joins us now. Mikhail, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Do you think Donald Trump has the will to stand up to Putin?
I think just first, Donald Trump would finally agree with European colleagues just to sell, not to pass to Ukraine equipment and ammunition, but to sell for money. And that's what he already agreed and the Europeans agreed. And that will be the reinauguration of new supplies to Ukraine. That's a good thing to do this. Hopefully it will take not much time just to provide Ukraine with the necessary equipment and Patriot system in particular. I think that's the major statement he will make today. Of course, he could say something else, but I don't believe that will change the situation, and I think Putin will continue to have his invasion.
How troubling are the sanctions currently, do you think, to Putin's regime? I mean, he doesn't seem to be concerned about the sanctions that have been lodged, but maybe that's just a pretense on his part. How bothersome are the sanctions upon Putin and the country?
Individual sanctions, just all those packages which were imposed during the 3-year period, just didn't create an immediate effect. They didn't enforce Putin to stop the war, but they created major problem for the economy and just accumulative effect over 3-year period of time right now in the place. And Putin feels that it is getting more and more difficult. By the end of this year, that will be even more difficult. And even already his ministers already warning him about that. That's why Putin just would like to press and to have offensive operation now just effective, so that within this several months, while he still feels financially quite stable, just to press Ukraine, to destroy Ukraine. That's why he continued to say, I will destroy Ukraine, I will achieve my goals, etc., etc. But the situation could change if the price cap for oil would be really implemented and controlled. In this case, just inflow of revenue to the federal budget of Putin. It will reduce Putin's ability to finance. That's the problem. That's already he facing the problem, because oil prices about just for him lower than 60, like 50. But the budget was set up with the expectation to have 70. He already, and that's what another pressure. Just pressure on two sides. One side, just we're expecting Donald Trump will announce today, again, a new supplies of equipment. And the second part, that is reduction of Putin's ability to finance. It means to reduce his foreign exchange inflow.
The point was put on this program a while ago that Putin has become reliant on the war economy, that factories have been set up and reopened to produce munitions for the war. And in fact, Russia requires a war for its economy to function. Do you believe that?
Yeah, for a certain period of time, yes, but growing problems would not allow just to have such a system, such a model for a long time. Just the problem with the manpower. Putin has no people to work. Just all people just now transfer from civilian industries to military industry. Yes, they get a lot of money. But civilian industries already just in a reduction, already contracting. The first quarter official figures show that the civilian industry is already just contracting. That's the problem. That's the problem he already just have during this year. By the end of the year, completely different situation will appear.
So if Ukraine hangs on, if Ukraine doesn't get overrun by Russia, you think by the end of the year, Putin might have to sue for peace even because he won't be able to carry on doing what he's doing?
Exactly. If pressure will increase on Putin's regime, as I mentioned, just on these two directions. In this case, Putin will be more flexible, and he already now I think if this a law will be adopted in the Congress. I mean, just this the Lindsey Graham initiative on huge tariffs on those countries who purchase Russian oil. If it will be adopted, that will be an instrument given to President of the United States. I don't think that will be the Congress decision. The law would provide just ability to the president to do. That's oral pressure. Not necessarily Trump will impose those sanctions, but that will be an instrument of pressing. Of course, it will not enforce Putin just to sit down now, but there will be a real pressure for as a potential real, I would say, just sanction, which will create big problem for him.
Just finally, I wanted to ask you a question. We talk a lot in this country about our need to improve our military planning, our military capacity, because the threat from Russia is so serious that it's likely or possible that Putin will invade a NATO country at some point, that Putin has his eyes on a Russian empire, and it is likely that he might take steps that puts him in direct conflict with NATO. Do you believe that? Do you believe that Putin will engage in a war with a NATO country?
I believe that such situation could be could be real only if Putin would allow, if the West would allow Putin to destroy Ukraine, and if Putin would get this victorious war against Ukraine, then he will immediately eat Moldova, which is nearby small country. And then he will try to test Article 5 of NATO Charter, whether this article works or not. Even among not NATO members countries, there is a discussion whether just some countries are ready to come to Poland, for instance, or Estonia to fight just on a NATO side. Putin would like to check it, whether it works at all. But just even members of NATO not all believe that works. That is a possibility. Not necessarily tanks invasion, but some kind of other means of the war.
So if Ukraine needs to stand, otherwise Putin will take further.
Yes, exactly. Ukraine, that's the major point right now for the whole European security architecture. Just Ukraine defends the whole Europe. That's why just the increased spending for military, that's absolutely reasonable.
Mikhail, great to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
That's Mikhail Kasyanov, Prime Minister of Russia in the early days of Vladimir Putin's reign. That's about 2000 to 2004, making the point there that if Ukraine falls and he's going to be ramping, he says basically Putin's got a year left before everything bites, and he wants to win in Ukraine. If he wins in Ukraine, all bets are off, but there's a year in which in Mikhail's view, he has the chance to do that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point, and many people have made the point that President Putin is helped by keeping the war going, because it is what's driving the economy, and when that stops, there will be some very significant political and economic questions for Russia to answer.